So that's, oh, Lord, what is this? Whoa, what has happened?
What's going on?
Dave, excuse me, Dave Dorset. Hi, Dave, how are you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I know what this is. It happens all the time.
What is it?
Monday, because of the time change, groggiest day of the year, and you're still a little tired from losing sleep. Is that it, Dave?
No, I get very sad when I realize I've wasted my life on this lousy show.
When David Letterman first went on the air in the mid-'80s, he brought with him a level of self-awareness and an ability to poke fun at his own show. While previous late-night hosts like Johnny Carson were more stiff, trying to maintain the illusion and keep everything perfect on screen, Letterman was willing to admit that this was a TV show. It had cameras, it had producers, and if they wanted to, they could walk right out the door and take a monkey to the Weather Channel studio. So why do I bring this up? Because in the year 2017, I've noticed a large boom recently in movies that are self-aware, or to specify, aware that they're being watched by someone. Gone are the days when a director would simply make a movie because he had a vision he wanted to see come to fruition for personal reasons. In the 21st century, movies are made to be seen by the world and made to, well, make money. Brilliant insight, I know. The interesting thing to look at here, though, is the way that movies are changing because of how aware they are of themselves and their audiences. Take a look at BBC's Sherlock. When season 4 ended a few months ago, Moriarty was the name on every fan's lips. He was a fan favorite character, everyone loved him in the Reichenbach Fall from season 2, they brought him back in a nightmare scenario at the Christmas special from last year, and this year they decided to give fans one last glimpse at the character through a flashback and his name having some very minor involvement with the story. The character died at the end of season 2, but fans loved him so much that the creators of Sherlock felt the need to make sure he was still a constant presence on the show. And the scene you're watching now? It's a scene that didn't really need to exist, but it does, and fans adore it, which is fine. All this to say, the creators of Sherlock aren't holed up in a basement writing their show and then releasing it to the public. Nowadays, they're aware of what audiences will want and what they've expressed a love for. And we can see this with a lot of things, from the Transformers movies that try to cram Asian locations into them to please the international demographics, to something like Logan, which was R-rated because fans begged for it so much. This aura of self-awareness extends further. When a movie is aware of itself, aware of what it is and the pros and cons of what it is, it has the ability to humor itself and give a wink and a nod at the audience and what they were thinking. If you take a look at Disney's most recent movie, Moana, for instance, we hear a lot of lines like this one, where Maui references the common tropes of Disney's own movies.
I'm the daughter of the chief.
Same difference.
No.
If you wear a dress and you have an animal sidekick, you're a princess.
In the past, we might have just called this a fourth wall break, but now I think it's become something bigger than that. It's a general attitude of awareness of the audience and awareness of what they're thinking. If you look at many of the movies that are really bad, like so bad they're good bad, you'll find a very consistent theme of them not being aware of this. The first Sharknado movie is so cringeworthy because it didn't seem to be aware of how ridiculous it was. It took itself so seriously that it just became one big joke. And while I hate to compare this film to Sharknado, I would note that Batman v Superman took itself really seriously as well, to the point where sometimes you just wish someone would make a joke about the fact that there was a guy wearing a bat costume. Many movies now are getting to that point. The point where if something is dumb or cliche, they don't take it too seriously, and oftentimes they call it out for what it is, like that scene from Moana. This is called hanging a lantern on it. If you acknowledge in your movie that something is dumb, the audience can sit back and relax because you're both on the same page now, like with this scene.
We're fighting an army of robots, and I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
Or this one.
Harry, I assume right about now you must be wondering why I brought you here. Am I right?
Actually, sir, after all these years, I just sort of go with it.
Or this one.
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
If you're aware of the pros and cons of what you are, you can humor yourself and move forward. The last thing I'd note that's part of this would actually be upstaging expectations. La La Land was a movie advertised as a classic, nostalgic musical with lots of magical dancing and songs, and probably a happy ending. It came as a shock to the audience then, when the ending wasn't exactly what they all may have expected. This again stems from the idea that the movie was aware enough to know that the audience expected it to end happily. So instead, they gave them a bit of a twist. So as you can see, there's a mass attitude of awareness in film lately. Is this good? Yeah. Is this bad? Yeah. On the one hand, a self-aware movie can accomplish a lot of things as mentioned. It can humor itself so that it doesn't seem overly pretentious or take itself too seriously. It can give the audience what it knows they want, especially the fans, and it can upstage the audience expectations because, well, it knows what they're expecting. Not to mention, oftentimes the best films are the films that are fully aware of what they are, because they understand themselves and their limitations. Pacific Rim is a dumb blockbuster, but it knows this, it's aware of this, and so it attempts to be the greatest dumb blockbuster it can be. It lives up to its full potential as what it is. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, a self-aware movie can pose some problems as well. For one thing, if you always have to make a joke or try to lighten the mood whenever things get too serious or dramatic, it can sometimes kill the sincerity of the moment and keep things from having weight or resonance. When movies feel the need to give a wink and a nod or hang a lantern whenever things get too sappy, it can throw you off a little. I love this scene from Guardians of the Galaxy, but to be fair, if all movies felt the need to do this whenever an emotional moment was happening, there wouldn't be any emotional moments, just comedy. And aside from this, there's also the issue of pleasing fans versus having your own vision. I mentioned Moriarty from Sherlock Season 4 earlier. Again, he really didn't need to be there, and in my opinion, he actually took away from the overall focus of the episode. Now that movie and TV studios are so aware of the fan bases of their movies, they're shoving in countless homages and characters and settings and references to previous films to try to appease the audience and make them nostalgic. But too much of this can kill a movie, as Rogue One in some cases can show us. And so sometimes it's actually better to have a director take on a movie and just make it without giving any thought to the fans or audiences in general. This applies to the bit about movies needing to defy expectations as well. Defying expectations can be great, but you don't always need to do that. And if a director feels like there has to be a twist or they have to avoid any and all cliches at all costs, they're too enslaved by what they think the audience reactions will be like. So yeah, movies are a very complicated medium, and above all, they require balance. It's great to be aware of your audience and their reaction, but it's not great to be bound by that awareness to the point where you really can't make what you want to make. But hey, just remember, if you ever really want to be aware of the audience, just have the characters talk to the camera.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.
Thanks for watching.
Go.